The time for common sense gun safety legislation is now. Our communities are hurting right now because of the inaction of certain lawmakers. Mothers are burying their children across this county because politicians that are bought and paid for by the gun lobby refuse to act. Teens across Gwinnett and the Atlanta metro are routinely becoming victims to gun violence right now because we have people in power refusing to act. Last week, 3 teens on their way to a house party in Lawrenceville were shot on the way in their car. Throughout this year, we have seen a wave of teenagers involved in shootouts, drive-bys, and straight-up homicides. I hope our leaders realize that their children could be any one of these newspaper headings right now. If we do not act, I could be next. We cannot take chances, and we have people in power right now that continue to gamble, to continue to remain static in their place because they are bought and paid for. Over the summer, I will be meeting with law enforcement and local governments to help address gun violence in Gwinnett County. I intend on meeting with our district attorney, Patsy Austin-Gatson, and police chiefs in each city within Gwinnett. I am dedicated to finding a solution. People my age are dying, and I'm willing to fight for them. And just to call them out, Governor Brian Kemp and his leaders in the State House and State Senate are seeing the effects of their relaxed approach to firearms. We can protect second graders and the Second Amendment at the same time. There is no reason why either of them should be off the table while we continue to strive for greater restrictions on weapons of mass destruction. Someone who truly respects the Second Amendment understands how dangerous guns are. They should not be in the hands of an 18-year-old. They should not be in the hands of individuals that are deemed mentally unstable by the courts. We need red flag laws, and we need extensive background checks. We need things that are already so commonplace in other states. Guns should be regulated similarly to a vehicle. I had to go through 30 hours of driving school, go through an alcohol drug awareness program. I had to pass a driver's test and a road knowledge test to receive this provisional license. 30 hours of instruction, as well as 5 hours mandated by the alcohol drug awareness program. Someone that is seeking to buy a gun will not go through the same process. They will not face hurdles, they will not face obstacles. The most they'll receive is a federal background check, and that is it. No waiting period at all. And under certain circumstances, such as gun shows and private sales, there is no background check at all. We also have an emerging problem of ghost guns, which are ghosts that are not tracked by the government because they do not have a serial tag. They are not currently known to be in existence. That is a big problem right now. A large issue as well is the prevalence of gun owners not properly storing their firearms. We're seeing a lot of teenagers right now become victims of gun violence because parents and family members are not locking up their firearms. It is so easily prevented. We had a bill in the General Assembly. It was the only gun violence related bill that saw a hearing, and the Republicans in the State House refused to let it pass because they knew it would work. We need firearms to be safely regulated. We need them to be safely stored. We are the United States of America, the best country in the world. To have such a preventable issue terrorize us in this moment is truly shameful. I am calling on the state legislature and members of Congress to pass common sense gun safety laws, to require waiting periods, extensive and comprehensive background checks, legally mandating the safe storage of firearms, and implementing red flag laws. These measures are proven to save lives. When my parents were young teenagers, their #1 leading cause of death was car accidents. In my generation, it proves to be gun violence. Let me and all other students across this nation see the day that we graduate high school and college. We are not asking for much. Thank you. Next, I want to introduce Gwinnett County's very own District Attorney, Patsy Austin-Gatson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is an extremely serious subject that we're talking about here today. Our children are dying. And I do commend Tyler for his courage in stepping out and making this center in front of our legislators, our governing authorities. We need this. We need protection. Our children should not be afraid to go to school. They should not be in a situation where they feel endangered. They should not be ducking under their desks for protection from guns that can be regulated. So we are asking for this. I have 4 grandchildren that live right here in Gwinnett County. I am vested in this county to work for it being safe. And let me just tell you, there's a brave man who is a gun shop owner right here in Gwinnett County. His name is John Walton. He saw what the issues are. And you know what he did? He took a step of courage. He stepped out. He closed his gun store because he saw the amounts and the number of weapons being ordered by people. Why do you need an AR-15 to walk around in our community? Why do you need that? That is a weapon of mass destruction. So we should outlaw those weapons. We should do that so that our children have a future. And it's unnecessary for this to be the #1 cause of their deaths, is gun violence. We have to stop this, or we will fail the next generation in this community. So I am, as Tyler indicated, we are calling out the legislators. Please do something. Hopes and prayers are great, but it's not enough. We have the ability, the authority to bring in red flag laws. And families, let me just tell you, you are the first ones who know who should not have a gun in your family. You are the first ones to know. Please speak up and let's do something about this. Let's not just talk anymore. I have some young people, junior DAs, junior investigators coming in to learn about our county. Gwinnett is a rich and wonderful county in that we can do more right here. And as I've always said, we can show the rest of this country how a diverse county gets it right. And we need to get it right. So Governor Kemp, all of y'all in authority, look at this with a new vision, a new eye. It's not about restricting anyone's rights per se. It is about saving lives. And I will move aside so others can have a moment to speak. But this is very important for us at this time, in this place, to make sure we do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Dia. Right now we are joined by 2 elected members of our county school board. I'm going to let Ms. Karen Watkins, who has personally experienced and seen gun violence personally, I'm going to let her speak.
Thank you, Tyler, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I did prepare a speech, because this is near and dear to my heart, as I have, as Tyler noted, personally experienced gun violence, not in my youth, but later in life, in front of my home. So today I stand before you as a concerned mother, a change agent, and an advocate for children's well-being, safety, and education. The issue I wish to speak to and address today is gun violence and its harmful impact on student learning. It is a discussion that demands our attention, our united efforts, and our unwavering determination to make a safer future for our kids. In schools across our country, our students should be engaged in learning, nurturing their imagination, and preparing themselves for the future. However, the cruel reality is that our children's education is continuously under threat due to the frightening presence of guns in our world. The dreadful consequences of gun violence move through our schools, leaving lasting scars that affect our students' ability to learn and thrive. First and foremost, let us acknowledge the profound impact gun violence has on the physical and emotional well-being of our students. The mere sight of weapons in our schools creates an environment loaded with angst and fear. Our students should feel safe in their schools, but instead, They are troubled with the persistent fear of violence looming in the corridors. This continual state of anxiety weakens their ability to stay focused, hampers their capability to learn, and perform at their utmost potential. Moreover, when gun violence erupts in our schools, the trauma imposed upon our children is immense. The imageries of frightened children looking for sanctuary, the echoes of gunfire through the hallways, and the devastating loss of people forever engraved are into their brains and minds of those as they survive. Mental scars are not easily healed, and they profoundly affect students' ability to focus and effectively learn. Outside the immediate trauma, after effects of gun violence can lead to interrupted learning environments as students and educators fight to deal with emotions and the reality of what has occurred. Student achievement unavoidably suffers as the attention shifts from teaching and learning to survive and healing. Furthermore, let us acknowledge the effects of gun violence on our school system. Frequent cases of school shootings push schools to redirect precious and important resources towards security measures, limiting funds available for needed educational resources that directly impact the classroom, such as textbooks and technology. In addition, there could be financial strain placed upon the school system that could obstruct the district's capability to draw in and keep qualified teachers, counselors, qualified staff, further hurting the quality of education to help our students achieve. We must stand united and vow to address gun violence and protect education. Our children have the right to have a high quality education. We must demand comprehensive gun control measures that put the safety of our children, schools, and community first. We must continue to push our lawmakers to close loopholes in background checks, strengthen mental health support systems, and implement effective gun violence prevention programs. Additionally, as mothers, we must foster a culture of kindness, empathy, and teach our children conflict resolution. By teaching these values to our children, we prepare them with the tools necessary to deal with conflict positively, effectively, and without violence. Let us work together and advocate for change. Let us direct our pain and anger in meaningful action, pushing for a world where our children can effectively learn and thrive without the worry of gun violence hindering them from reaching their true potential. Our children deserve our unwavering devotion and support to creating a future free from the harmful effects of gun violence. Thank you for your time.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Watkins, for your words. As a student, as a junior at Peachtree Ridge High School, it rings so true. My school experienced a threat of a mass shooting last year in the fall, and so that day I did leave school. And so I do want to introduce next a Georgia legislator that has proven to be a friend and an ally in this effort against gun violence. I want to introduce State Senator Nabila Islam of District 7.
All right. First of all, I want to commend Tyler for putting this together. You've been outstanding on this issue, and thank you so much for your advocacy. We're very proud of you. Again, it's an honor to be joining all of you today. I'm Senator Nabila Islam from Gwinnett County, District 7, and I'm proud to say that some of the first legislation that I introduced in the Senate was to limit the availability of deadly firearms in the state of Georgia. Hundreds and thousands of our brothers and sisters are being murdered in cold blood by weapons of war that can be purchased legally here in the state of Georgia. The time to act is now. This is a public safety emergency. Too many hardworking Georgians go to school or they go to work carrying the fear that they or their loved ones might not come home at night. Too many first responders are put in danger every day because of firearms. Too many businesses just trying to get by suffer the costs and impossible choices created by firearms. How can any elected official look their constituents in the eye and say they're working to make them safer if they're not working to address the gun violence in our communities? Know this, that I will keep fighting with the full power of my office to make Georgia safer every day so that no mother or father or brother or sister or daughter, friend or neighbor has to live in the fear of weapons of war being used to kill in our community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Islam, for your words, and I know she will continue to be an advocate for safe gun storage legislation, for preventative gun violence measures within or under the Golden Dome. I also want to introduce another legislator who served 4 years in the General Assembly, the Honorable Donna McLeod.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. I stood with Tyler last year because of this issue being so very important. These children are in a fight for their lives, and we're the adults that should be standing with them and making sure they feel secured. As a person who was a victim of gun violence when I was a child and had PTSD because of that, I know what these children are going through. It is incumbent on all of us that are lawmakers and parents to keep pushing forward on reasonable gun safety laws. I understand that the gun is an inanimate object that cannot move, won't do anything by itself. However, put in the hands of people and a bullet in a gun can harm and destroy people's lives. As a person who just recently lost her sister, not to gun violence, but to a death, that loss is immense. And when you lose somebody, you don't know how it is until you're there. And I can't imagine all the families that have been suffering over decades because we are not taking action. It is so important for us to stand up for our children. These are our babies. I'm a mom, I'm a grandmother. These are our babies. We owe them. For the future, they need us. This is unacceptable. I've spent 4 years in the Georgia House, and there's nothing that we cannot do. If man made the law, man can undo the law. And this is the real test of who we are. What do we stand for? Who were we? 40 years from now, 20 years from now, what did we do when we were called? And this young man has been doing it, and some of the other young people. There's a few more kids out there that are doing this stuff, but Tyler has always stood up and said, yes, Miss Donna, can you help me? And I said, I am there. So together, we're going to push and we're going to keep fighting. Because if they won't change, then we change them out. Thank you very much.
Oh, and I just want to hug you, Miss McLeod. Miss Donna, Miss McLeod has been my second mom ever since I met her a couple years back. And so it always means a lot to have her support, especially during big events like these. Next, I want to introduce a leader in our AAPI and Korean community, Miss Michelle Kang. She has been a great ally to me as well in helping organize all of this, especially including our Korean press.
Thank you, Tyler, for your gun safety advocacy and organizing this press conference. My name is Michelle Kang, an AAPI advocate. The AAPI community is still suffering from the collective trauma from the March 16, 2021 Atlanta shootings. We lost 8 people, and among 8, 4 were Korean women and 2 were Chinese women. I would like to share the timeline of the gun crime. Robert Long purchased the gun and ammunition at 2 p.m. at Holly Springs in Cherokee County and drove near Atworth. He planned where to commit a homicide and waited for an hour outside of an Asian woman-owned business and went inside. At 4:54 p.m., he pulled out his gun and began shooting and killing 4 people and critically injuring a 5th. At 5:47 p.m., about 30 miles away from Edgeworth. He went to another Asian woman-owned business on Piedmont Road in Atlanta and killed 3 Asian women. While Atlanta police officers were called and investigating the crime, they were told shots were fired across the street, and the investigator found another Asian woman shot to death. 8 weeks later, Fulton prosecutors said they plan to seek the death penalty and pursue a hate crime charge against Robert Long. I still remember how our AAPI members were shocked, feared, and angered when breaking news came out on the evening on March 16th, and we could not believe Long planned and targeted Asian women-owned businesses and was able to obtain gun without a waiting period and was able to traveling from Cherokee County to Atlanta without any interference and kill another 4 people. They were our grandmothers, mothers, sisters, and aunts. They were to go back to their home where their families were waiting for them. Under current federal law, there is no waiting period requirement for the purchase of guns. Waiting period laws give law enforcement additional time to perform an accurate background check and create a cooling off period to prevent acts of violence or homicide. If sold from a federal licensed dealer, a gun can be transferred to a purchaser before the proper background check is performed. However, the laws do not apply to private dealers in states that do not require universal background check. Waiting period can reduce the number of prohibited people from purchasing guns, along with those who purchase the firearm with the intent of homicide. Waiting period are an underutilized, evidence-based strategy for reducing death and injuries. We live in a state where gun violence is already reached the record level. During the Memorial Weekend, shootings across the U.S. left at least 16 people dead and dozens were injured. The gun violence occurred at beaches, high schools, and motorcycle rallies, among other locations across at least 8 states. The victims were teenagers to people in their 60s. In Atlanta, Breasia Powell, a 16-year-old girl, lost her life to gun violence during the Memorial Weekend. We are afraid to go to public spaces, including schools, malls, and shopping centers, and gun violence becomes an epidemic and happening every day. With our background checks and a cooling off period, we all are exposed to gun violence, and we are on the roulette if we get killed if we go to certain public places. On April 12, 2022, Governor Brian Kemp signed legislation that makes it legal for Georgia gun owners to carry a concealed handgun in public without a license from the state. Georgia now generally permits any lawful weapons carrier to carry handguns openly or concealed in most public spaces without any background check or permit required. An analysis conducted by GPB News found that almost all Georgia counties have over a 90% approval rate for concealed carry applications. In 2020, more than 280,000 permits were granted, with around 5,300 denied, mainly for criminal history. And a poll conducted by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution showed that nearly 70% of Georgia voters opposed permitless carry and said they believe adults in Georgia should not be able to carry a concealed handgun in public without a license. On May 10, 2023, Georgia Democrats called for a special session to address gun violence. We are seeking to tighten gun laws. We want background checks for all gun purchasers, including private sales. We want to require gun owners to lock up their guns at home and ask courts to be able to temporarily take away guns from people who are a danger to themselves or others. But Governor Kemp or Republicans who are majority in the state House and Senate are preparing any legislative and not preparing any legislative responses. According to NBC News and many newspapers published yesterday, June 1st, as DA Austin Gasson said, the John Workman, a gun store owner in Duluth, said his shop is already closed and he will have all weapons cleared out by June 15th. He is doing this after his conscience was burdened with any recent mass shootings that targeted young victims. He said he reached the point of worrying that any weapon he sells, even to someone who will never commit a crime, could end up in the wrong hands. For your information, gun sales, as approximately by background check, surged in 2020 to 39,695,315 just as the COVID-19 pandemic began. They have declined each year since to 38,876,673 in 2021 and to 31,596,646 in 2022. Still, these numbers remain higher than pre-pandemic levels. We require a safe community where we can live without worrying about gun violence and losing our children's lives. We all need to work together to ask for background checks to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle Kang. And I was one of the speakers at the 2-year anniversary for the March 16th Atlanta spa shootings, and it was a extremely humbling and honored moment of mine to be able to speak as a gun safety advocate, especially in the face of such tragedy that happened in the Atlanta metro. Next, I want to introduce another legislator, Representative Gabe Okoye. He represents a portion of Gwinnett County, like all of the legislators here.
Thank you, Lee. And this is my district, so welcome to my district. Gun violence is very serious. I had a prepared speech, but I put that away because I want to speak from the heart. See, please don't believe the hype. Nobody is coming after your guns. Instead, guns are coming after your lives. Don't believe the hype. Let me dwell on one thing. I think common sense, as they say, ain't that common. If it were, you would have known that automatic rifles, the mass destructive rifles, were banned at some point. I forgot the year it was. And gun violence drastically dropped. And then they reinstated it, and it went right back up. So common sense would have dictated that we keep the ban going. That's what should have helped. So we need, I'm going to be very blunt and call for the banning of those military-style assault weapons. Nobody goes hunting with them. Nobody goes hunting with them. If you are not going to hunt with them, what do you need them for? Are we at war with each other? We keep talking about the next generation, the next generation. The way we are going, there may not be a next generation. Let's start with saving them. Let's start with banning reducing gun violence. And you can do something about it, because we can't just be talking about and leaving it up to the police and all those other law enforcement people. We have the power. I am a legislator. I am against guns, period. Now, all of us, you know where we stand on guns. You can rise up against the ones who are pro-guns, who promote this gun violence, and vote them out of office. And guess what you will have? People who will help protect the lives of our children. ladies and gentlemen, don't believe the hype. Nobody is coming after your guns. Guns are coming after your lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Okoye. I want to introduce another legislator, a good friend of mine, Representative Roman. She won her primary and her general election, in which I was a very involved member of, and I am so happy to see her as a representative. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative Roman.
Thanks, Tyler. And thank you for putting all this together. Thank you all for being here. My name is Ro Roman. As Tyler mentioned, I represent House District 97, which is West Gwinnett. My colleagues have pretty much said all of it, and I wanted to echo a few points. As Democrats, unfortunately, we don't control a single branch of government in Georgia. And what we've seen as a result of that is an increased denial of the impact of guns on our society. And not only is it a denial, but it's also an enablement of this violence. So it's not like our politicians are just leaving this issue. They're actually enabling more people to get more guns. From the, what I dubbed as the unconstitutional carry, or the criminal carry bill that passed that lets anybody carry a gun, to the fact that we are unable to even get a hearing for most of these bills. So I want to talk to you about a few of these bills. House Bill 44 would require everyone who requires a gun, including through private gun sales and transfers, to undergo a background check. House Bill 135 and 161, the Safe Storage Act, establishes that failure to secure a firearm that is then accessed by a minor and publicly displayed or used for a threat of violence, or accessed by anyone and used for a crime or to cause injury, shall be a misdemeanor. And as for House Bill 161, it requires that any firearm that could be accessed by a minor must be safely secured. So far, pretty common sense measures. House Bill 584, Georgia Red Flag Protective Order Act, permits state courts to order the temporary removal of firearms from a person they believe may present an imminent danger to themselves or others. Does any of that sound like it is meant to be harmful or meant to restrict people's rights? No, these are common sense solutions that the majority of Georgians and the majority of Americans support. And it's because they're proven to reduce gun violence. There is no harm in requiring people that have a gun to properly store it. There is no harm to enable those who need mental health support to remove those guns away from them. Because the unfortunate reality is a lot of homicides and a lot of deaths actually are the result of completed suicides as a result of guns. And we don't talk about that enough. Why is it if somebody's suicidal, why should we leave a gun around them? Don't they deserve a chance to fight for their lives? Mm-hmm. Everyone deserves to live in safety and security. And this is why we have been urging our colleagues to please not only give these pieces of legislation a hearing, but also pass them. The bills are there. The language is done. We have done the work. And now we need all of them to join us. And so for those of you, and you've heard my colleague ask for this as well, especially if your state representative or state senator is a Republican, reach out to them and tell them you support this. Because a lot of times they're not hearing this message. They're only hearing it from us. But I know that there are people who support this. And so thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for listening to us. This is an urgent matter and requires an urgent response.
Yes.
Thank you, Representative. We will be getting to Councilman and Mayor Pro Tem Austin Thompson in a second. Dr. Adrian Simmons of the Gwinnett County Board of Education would like to say a couple words.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Adrian Simmons, representing District 4 of the Gwinnett County Public School Board. I too did not come prepared to give a speech today, but I at the same time could not keep quiet. I shared when I was running for school board last year that I come from a town just north of Chicago, Illinois. And when I moved here over 20 years ago, I was surprised to hear that there were people that I meet afraid to visit Chicago because of the violence there. And when we look up here now in 2023 in the Atlanta area, the same amount of violence is starting to bubble here. While it may not meet the amount of violence we've experienced in the Chicago area, it is on the rise, and it can happen. As a student in school myself, I experienced a classmate being the victim of gun violence. Here in Atlanta, in the city of Atlanta and surrounding areas, and across the nation, we have districts where boys, black boys, people of color, boys of color, have a higher chance of being injured or killed by a gun than graduating. And that is unacceptable. I am looking for our legislators to demonstrate bravery. This is not a Republican issue, nor a Democrat issue. It's a human rights issue.
Yes.
Our kids deserve to graduate. They deserve to live and prosper. They are our future. And if we don't protect them, who will? So today I ask for bravery, and I ask for someone to stand up for our children and to acknowledge that this is a human rights issue and that we can be the ones to bring an end to gun violence if we are brave enough to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Simmons. Up next, we have our last State House member, State Representative Farouk Mughal, who is currently holding the very coveted distinction of being targeted by our governor, Brian Kemp. There are a couple legislators here as well that are also the target of our governor, and I would just want to let him know that we are fighting for him, and the reason why our governor is targeting him and Senator Nabila Islam is because they are doing the right thing and they're fighting the good fight. So up next, I want to introduce Representative Farouk Mughal.
Thank you, Tyler. This issue, and State Representative Farouk Mughal, I represent North Gwinnett. This issue is so important. It's not a partisan issue. It's not a Republican-Democrat issue. From our colleagues, I can rest assure you that we are and we will fight for our kids at the state capitol. We are fighting for kids and families. We are fighting for our businesses. We are fighting for this. When I toured my district and I met with the principals in North Gwinnett, Tequila High, Seconder, and other schools, there's only one thing they asked me: what about gun violence? So think about it, how important this issue is. Again, we have great legislation. We're going to continue to pursue that. We'll fight for our kids. We'll fight for our teachers. We'll fight for our schools and the families. This needs to stop. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Mughal. Up next, we have one of the city of Lawrenceville's top officials with us, the Mayor Pro Tem and Councilman Austin Thompson. He has been an excellent mentor to me. He continues to be, and he's currently helping me in meeting with our local law enforcement to see how we can address and fix this issue. So up next, I want to introduce Mayor Pro Tem Councilman Austin Thompson.
Thank you very much. Definitely want to thank Mr. Tyler Lee for the invitation to stand among these illustrious individuals and elected officials. A young man with a lot of passion and a vision for, just rolling back on gun legislation and making sure we do the right thing. Personally, I am not anti-gun ownership, as I grew up in a house with multiple guns, which were there for the purpose of protection. What I am against is irresponsible gun legislation, which places guns in the hands of those who have chosen the path of least resistance to own a firearm and who, with tougher restrictions in place, would not be easily in possession of guns. Furthermore, I am in opposition to a system which fails to strengthen requirements for purchasing and owning a firearm and leaving loopholes open, like the Guns Everywhere bill here in Georgia, which allows concealed and open carry in all public spaces without the need for background checks and permits. We have created a recipe for disaster. This dangerous legislation has contributed to Georgia becoming a state with one of the weakest in respect to gun law strength and the highest in gun violence. Guns everywhere is not the solution, because left unchecked and unregulated, individuals can walk into a gun store or anywhere and purchase a gun. The proliferation of firearms on the streets of America, and especially here in Georgia and in Gwinnett County, is not what we need. It has been proven that with less guns in the hands of citizens, we see a decline in gun violence and gun deaths. With more guns on the streets and within a system which influences the pervasive and voracious appetite for access to firearms, we see upticks in gun violence, and especially among our youth. We are pleased to see young people like Tyler Lee take the gun advocacy stance and work to galvanize support among those who wish to work on improving our gun legislation. We also recognize Gwinnett County's progressive stance in establishing gun crimes initiatives and a unit earlier this year to curb gun violence in our county. I personally will be working with our City of Lawrenceville Police Department to ensure that we are implementing similar programs that are effectively reducing gun violence crime in our city. Reducing access to firearms from those who are unable to purchase them legally is one part of the solution. However, we must also reduce access to and the carrying of rapid-fire weapons such as AR-15s and similar guns. We can help our law enforcement officers by taking the burden off their shoulders as they face rampant gun usage on the streets, by continuing the pressure for responsible gun legislation. Moreover, we can make sure our young people are safe on the streets as well as in our public spaces where the chances of a high number of fatalities are possible. With responsible legislation that can reduce rampant gun violence, we can help to reverse the challenge which gravely concerns us. In conclusion, according to a BBC 2021 report, it states, gun violence is a fixture in American life. I'll say that again. According to the BBC report, it states, gun violence is a fixture in American life. As of May 9, 2023, we are at 30% of the total mass shootings for the year, compared to 2021, the year which registered the highest number of mass shootings in the past 10 years at 690. In addition to